guys, Lake here, and today we're going to be talking about what to expect for this year's Walt Disney World Run Disney Wine and Dine weekend. So, if you've never ran this weekend before, this weekend has 3 races, a 5K, a 10K, and a half marathon. And as many of you are probably signed up for, if you do the half and the 10K together, you run the Lumiere Challenge. Now, I did not do this race last year, but I did run it the first year they did it in 2016. And Katie has also done Wine and Dine. This will be her 3rd year. She did the half the last year that they did the night race, which is pretty cool. Wish I could have been there for that, but sadly was not. So what we're going to do is go through a little overview of the weekend, the what's what, and also what our plan is, so that you guys can get an idea of what to expect and an idea of what you may need or things that you may not have thought of. For this race weekend, we are going to be staying at the Pop Century Resort on Disney property. This is a great resort, it's a value resort. So we've stayed here for quite a few different race weekends. It's an awesome option. One thing that I love about it is the transportation for the weekend. They offer busing to all of the races as well as the expo. And we have not had a problem no matter where we've stayed with the transportation. And it's great because you don't have to get up early in the morning and worry about driving. And you can just hop on a bus and get to where you need to be at 3 in the morning. So another thing I wanted to talk about is things to pack for the weekend. Race weekends can be a little different than just packing for your normal trip to Disney. So there's a couple extra little things that I wanted to talk about. Some things that you're going to be like, well duh, and a couple things that you may be like, oh, I may need that. First off, we're going to talk about shoes. You should hopefully have a good pair of running, walking shoes, whatever you wear that you've been fitted for. Most people have a go-to style or brand. For instance, I wear Saucony Guides. This is actually an older pair, and they are pretty worn. But these are the running shoes that I wear all the time. And I'm probably going to wear these for the half. And then for the 10K, I'm probably going to wear my road shoes. Now these are not something that everyone needs to have. They're basically just lighter, a little bit less supportive racing shoes. They're made for longer road races, like 10Ks and halves. I've worn them for a couple of each race and I really like them. But I'm probably not going to wear them for the half marathon this time, because I don't think I'm going to PR, so I'm going to go ahead and wear what's going to be more supportive. And then the less obvious is what you're going to wear after you've just ran 13.1 miles or even 6 miles. If you're running a race at home, a lot of people can go home and rest for the day or do whatever, but many people are going to be heading to the parks, and especially with Wine and Dine, they have the after party late at night. So you're going to want to consider what shoes you're going to be wearing after the event, especially if you're running the challenge and you're going to be running, going to the parks, and then waking up the next morning and running again. So definitely make sure that you have some sort of comfy shoe that you're going to wear, and even multiple shoes. It's always great to switch out shoes. Another great suggestion is a comfy pair of sandals, something supportive and will work if your feet swell. These are Katie's pair of Dr. Scholl's sandals. They're actually super awesome. I'm very jealous of them because they seem so comfy, especially after a race. I just showed you I have a pair of Nike sneakers that's usually my go-to, but I really should consider picking myself up a pair of these. I know that there's a lot of other basically after running sandals and other supportive sandals that people like that you can read more about online. The next thing I'm going to talk about is food and water and all that other good stuff. So if you're flying in, this can be a little tricky because you really don't want to spend up all your weight on a plane with food and whatnot. So one option is obviously you can either Uber or use a grocery delivery system to have groceries delivered to your room. And this can be really great for people because, as I've already mentioned, many of these mornings you're going to be up at 3 a.m. if not earlier to catch your bus, and you're not stopping at a quick service to get breakfast that early because nothing is open. Now, many of the on-site resorts do offer packages that they sell throughout the day. It's like a little lunch bag, and it usually has things like bagels, some sort of fruit like blueberries, a banana, sometimes like a granola bar or something. I've done this in the past. It was actually a really good option, and I typically do something similar to that. Another thing to consider as well is if you are a coffee drinker, how you will be getting your morning fix. Not every room in Disney has coffee makers. Many of them do now, and most of them do. But if you're staying at an All-Star, for instance, they do not. So you're going to need to figure out how you get your coffee. So one thing we like to do to solve this problem is we actually bring our own Keurig. We drive, so that's an option. It's not a huge Keurig, it's just one of the single pot makers. But it's a really good option for race mornings because we can have everything out and ready, and in the morning, just a few minutes, we can get all the coffee up and going. And usually we bring a disposable cup so that we can bring it onto the bus and just chuck it with us, or chuck it before the race. And then another thing to consider is what sort of fuel you'll be using either before or during the race. You may not necessarily need it for the 5K or the 10K, but for people running the half and people who run longer races, you know that usually you need something to get you through that race. In the past, Cliff was a sponsor of the Run Disney races, so about halfway through the half marathon, you got a nice little gel pack, and that was great. Currently, Cliff does not sponsor the races anymore, and instead you've been getting basically jelly bean sport beans. They're nice, they're sweet, but it doesn't give you quite as much as some of the old packs do. There are a lot of options, and people at the expo will have basically anything you would need for this. If you've never had these before, I would suggest getting a couple and trying them before you go to a race. For instance, this is goo. A lot of people love goo. However, it gives me a stomach ache, and usually I feel like I'm gonna yak when I eat it, so I try to avoid it. I do, however, like the Cliff gel shots, which are the ones that they used to give out during the race. My favorite is the vanilla. The only downfall is it doesn't have caffeine in it, so I usually don't take this one before the race. This is usually a mid-race energy. And typically before the race, I do these little Stinger fruit snacks. They're, again, energy. You can get them with caffeine in them, and they're another great option that I go to. Of course, you also want to consider what you're going to be racing in. Many people have a lot of different costumes or fancy clothes or whatever, but the most important thing is to make sure that you're going to be comfortable, especially if you're doing the half marathon, because whatever you're wearing for 13.1 miles. Now, if it is cold that morning, a lot of people do like to get basically burner sweatshirts or throwaway sweatshirts. They'll go to Walmart or Goodwill and just buy a cheap hoodie, and on race mornings you can wear it there, and either before the race or right after the race starts along the course you can take that sweatshirt and chuck it off the course, and people actually come and collect it, and all of that clothing gets donated to charity. So another good option if you think it may be cold that morning and you're going to need something to help keep yourself warm before the race starts. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about the weekend and the schedule of the weekend, starting with the expo. So the expo is basically where you're going to do your packet pickup and get your bib. It's where all the vendors are, so you can get your merch and whatnot. It's basically the first place that you're going to be going for the weekend. The expo is open 3 days. It starts on Thursday and is open 10 to 7 on Thursday, and then it's open Friday 10 to 7, and Saturday it's open from 9:30 to 3:30. So basically, before you can run your races, you need your bib, you need your packet. You should definitely go and do this at least a day before your race. So if you're running the 5K, you should go and pick up your packet that Thursday. So in the past, there used to be a big need for people to get to the expo at Thursday at 10 a.m. to be the first to get different limited edition merchandise and whatnot. I find now that this isn't really the case. Usually, most of the big merchandise, the pins, hats, and basically different limited release merchandise that they do for the event usually is still available throughout the weekend, and even many times at the merchandise stand that they have at the finish line of the half marathon. That's not to say that they may not run out of some things. I believe they did have a pass holder shirt at the last Star Wars race that sold out, as well as a couple other items that you can look up. But for the most part, we have not had any problem getting the things that we usually get, which includes magnets, pins, sometimes a tumbler if they're cool. The more important thing is that you need to pick up your bibs and your race packet and your race shirts as well. This is obviously the shirt from the Lumiere Challenge from when I ran the 10K and a half in 2016. But anyways, so if you're staying on property, you can either hop on a bus, or if you drove, you can drive over to the expo. The expo is at ESPN Wide World of Sports. If you're staying at Pop or Art of Animation, it's like literally a minute and a half down the road. It's on the Victory Way, where that resort is. So super convenient if you're staying at one of those. Anywhere else though, it's really fine. Hop on the buses from the resort. They'll have a separate expo line. It's usually like more of a mirror style bus, like a coach bus. It's not the regular white Disney buses that take you to the parks. So don't get on one of those, they will take you to the wrong place. But once you get there, if you took the buses, they drop you off right at the main gate. You'll be right there where everything happens. Usually if you drive, you park in the back and you've got maybe a quarter-mile walk to get up there. But once you get there, there's going to be a very large building to your right, the newer building. That is the building where you'll find your Disney merchandise and whatnot. We are going to bypass that for a moment and keep walking into ESPN. So once you walk up the path, and there'll be a little check-in area basically, or a little what's the word I'm looking for? Once you walk up the path a bit, there'll be a little gate entrance. You don't need a ticket or proof of race. Anyone can go up into the area. And then once you walk back, there'll be two more buildings, one to the left and one to the right. The building to the left is basically the pickup building. So you'll go there, and then usually you hang right and you go down some stairs. And right when you get to the bottom of those stairs, you can print your waivers. You don't need to worry about printing them beforehand. If you want to and you want to have them signed and ready to go, you can. We've had no problem just walking up to a computer and printing out our waivers. Usually there's little to no line for it, and it takes maybe 30 seconds. But you go ahead and fill out that waiver, and then you'll walk into a big open gymnasium room, and they'll have basically booths for each of the races. So they'll have a 5K section, 10K, half marathon, and challenge section. So if you're running the challenge, you only have to go to the challenge section. You do not have to go to the 5 and the half, or the 10 and the half and the challenge. However, if you're running the 5K and the challenge, you still have to go to the 5K stand. And same if you're running the 5 and the 10K, you will go to each of those respective places. You will need your race waiver as well as proof of ID, so your driver's license or whatever else you have to prove that you're you. But you'll go and you'll sign a little thing basically saying you're checking in, and they will give you your basically a little bag. It'll have your waiver in it, usually a little event guide, and a couple other goodies as well. If you're running the challenge, you are also going to go ahead and take your bib. The challenge bib, which is the 10.5, is 1 bib for both races. So do not lose it or toss it after the race, and don't worry, it's 1 bib. Bib covers all of it. It's going to have your corral placement in the corner for both races, so it will say A-B or A-A. Basically the first one is your corral for the 10K, second one is your corral for the half marathon. But you're going to take this bib if you're running the challenge, and you're going to go ahead right over to the line to the side. There'll be a photo pass person, and you're going to take a picture with your bib. This is so that at the end of the races, when you go to pick up your challenge medal, they can tell that, yes, you were the person that ran this race, you completed both races. You do have to finish to get the challenge medal. If you don't finish a race, you can still get your medal, but you do have to finish both to get your challenge medal. One thing you may notice is your shirts will not be there. They do basically swing you to go to the expo by putting all your shirts over there. Basically your bib will have a little tear off that says your shirt size. So you're going to exit the building you were just in, and you're going to go walk across to the other building that was to your right when you came in. And in there will be the Race Expo. This is where all of the third-party vendors are located. So it's really cool to walk around. This is again where you'll find your goo. You can try on different shoes. There'll be all kinds of different vendors for clothes. If you need your sparkle skirts, headbands. Usually all kinds of different food vendors there as well, giving out stuff. There was a BOGO Chipotle one year, which was super cool. I stocked up on those. But anyways, you'll walk in this building and you'll be on the 2nd floor. You can walk down the stairs to your left, and then you have to make your way through the expo to the back, and there'll be basically big long booths with the races up on it, and you'll walk up to the people and match your size, and they will hand you basically a bag with all of your shirts in it. If you're running the challenge, then all of your shirts, all 3, will be rolled up into one, and they'll just hand it, and you're good to go. Now, of course, I mentioned the large building right before you walked into the ESPN complex. This is the building where they have specifically the RunDisney and Disney branded merchandise. It's its own building. Typically, if there's going to be lines for things, this is where it's at. But if you go basically not right when it opens, you don't typically have to worry about these lines for merchandise. We usually go closer or later in the evening before they close, and we have never really had an issue getting into it. But usually they also have the different props that you can take pictures with, and photo pass is usually there, and they'll have the large signs for each of the races with basically a giant medal or image of the medal that you can get a picture behind as well. This is usually the last place we check out. Usually the merchandise that we're interested in is the magnets. They usually have a magnet for each race, as well as a race logo magnet that they've started doing recently. And then I do collect the Disney pins, as you're probably aware if you've watched any of my other videos on the channel. So we gotta stop in and pick up a couple of these. That wraps up basically all the essentials that you're going to need to know about the expo. And now we get into the fun stuff. The 5K. So the 5K is Friday. It starts at 5 a.m. and is at Animal Kingdom. If you're driving, you're going to park at Animal Kingdom. And obviously, resort guests will have the option to bus over there. They suggest that you get there by 4:30. So just be prepared for that. That means that you're gonna have to be up and getting on the buses pretty early. So, a couple tips and tricks to also help get you guys ready the night before. One thing that definitely helps is make sure you lay out your clothes. Usually I go ahead and I will put my bib on whatever shirt I'm gonna wear. You can either just lay out the shirt, or I usually put the shirt on and then put it on. That way I know when I'm wearing it that it's already center and ready to go. Some people also like to put it off on the side of their shorts. But anyways, it's one thing to save you a couple minutes, but lay out all your clothes, you know, shorts, whatever else, shoes, socks. Make sure you have all that ready to go in the morning. If you're bringing a bag, have that bag already packed. Everything you're going to need, make sure you're in it. Basically, just anything that you know you need in the morning, have out and have ready. Make sure that you've seen it that night before. That way in the morning, you're not digging through, going, oh no, I haven't seen this, where is it? A couple other small things that are good or helpful. Obviously, if you're bringing some sort of belt or bag to wear, make sure you have that all packed and ready and know what you're going to be using to carry your things in. I don't like to carry a lot of things with me when I run. So one thing, obviously, I do have my running watch. Make sure if you do use a smartwatch or some sort of running watch that it's charged and ready to go in the morning. And then I do put my phone in one of those, what is it? This one's an arm pocket. This is huge because I have a Galaxy S9 Plus, so I needed a really big phone case. But one thing that's nice about this is it has the pockets on the inside as well, so I can put my ID in it, I can put my annual pass, anything else that I may need, usually a credit card in case I would end up going into a park or something, or would want to, you know, buy a beer after the race or any of that. Another cool trick that I like to do is I actually like to take one of my magic bands and pull one of the fobs out of it. Normally, your magic bands look like this, but with the Magic Band 2s, which you all have if you ordered them for this trip, have little screws in the back, and you can pull out this little piece. And this is super convenient to bring with you, say if you're not a person who wants to wear a big armband or wear some sort of, you know, little pocket system. So this would fit easily in a little zipper pocket that goes right behind your butt, almost running shorts. And this is just one of those little things that would help take off the weight that you have to have when you're running. So this is a pretty cool race. I actually just checked out the course map, which you can find on the virtual guide on the RunDisney site. But this whole race is through Animal Kingdom. You'll basically start in the parking lot, and you'll run a mile around the outside of the parking lot, which is going to stink. But anyways, then you'll get into Animal Kingdom, you'll run up to Discovery Island through the main entrance, and you'll hang a left, you'll go and zigzag through Pandora a bit, and then down around the back towards Africa. You'll go backstage a little bit, and then you'll go basically down around Everest, and you'll go out back the exit by Dino Land USA. And you'll go backstage a little bit more, you'll run on a service road back there, and then around to the finish. So, pretty cool course. I have not done any of the 5Ks. I have been signed up for them before, but haven't gotten to make it over for them. But it's a cool race, and definitely the easiest of the races. While they do ask you to hold the 16-minute pace, they usually don't enforce it as well on the 5Ks because most of it is through the park. However, if you are dragging along too long, they can sweep you. But you'll finish where you started in Animal Kingdom, and then you can hop right back on the buses, or your car is going to be right there, and you can head home. And that's really all I have to say about the 5K. Alright guys, so now we're getting into Saturday, the 10K. If you're running the challenge, this will probably be your first race, unless you already did the 5K too. Then you're just cool, I guess. So the 10K starts at Magic Kingdom. If you're taking the resort buses, you want to be up and trying to get to your bus by around 3:30 a.m. That's usually what the event guide suggests. Yes, you should really try to get there early. It's better, especially if a bus may be backed up or the buses are running a little slow. You want to give yourself all the time to get there that you can. If you are driving, you are actually not going to Magic Kingdom. Say it again. You are not going to Magic Kingdom if you are driving. You are going to be parking at Epcot, and from there they will have shuttles to take you to the Magic Kingdom because the race finishes at Epcot. So you're going to go and one way or another get yourself to Magic Kingdom, and once you're there you'll go through, they'll have security, they'll do bag check, and then you can go through and drop off, basically if you're keeping a checked bag, basically they give you a big clear bag. If you want them to hold stuff for the finish, you can go ahead and go through and do that. And then they have a couple things. They'll have a little stand open with coffee, bananas, that sort of stuff that you can buy. And then usually between an hour and 45 minutes before the race, the corrals will open. Now I talked a little bit about corrals earlier. This is my bib from 2016. So no, you can't copy this and get into the race this year. It doesn't work like that. But basically, up here you have your corral numbers, and if you're a challenge runner, it's going to have 2 letters on it there, A-D. Basically the first one is your corral for the 10K, and then D for 2016 was my corral for the half. If you are running with friends and you guys have different corrals, you can run in the same corral, however you have to all run in the furthest corral. So if you have 3 friends and you are all, one's corral A, one corral is corral B, and the last person is corral C, if you want to run together, you all have to run out of corral C. When you go to get into the corrals, they will check and make sure that you are getting into the right corral. Around 5:30, the race will start. Basically, they'll start push rim and strollers first, and then they'll let the corrals off in A. So basically, they'll let about half of corral A go, and then a few minutes later, the other half of corral A, and then half of corral B, so on and so forth. And it may be more waves in the corrals depending on the size of them. Typically they vary in the races. One thing I do not like about this 10K is the race course pretty much sucks. So as I said, you start in Magic and you're going to zigzag a little bit through their parking lot exit structure, and then you're going to find yourself on the beloved World Drive, which if you've ever driven into Walt Disney World, this is basically the road you take into Magic Kingdom. But you're gonna hike all the way down World Drive for about 3 miles, and then you're basically gonna go run up the exit to get to Epcot, and finally, after 4 long miles, you will get some park action. You will basically go in through Epcot, basically around where Living with the Seas is, and you'll go in through by Spaceship Earth, and then down the main path, and you'll hang a right, and go around World Showcase. You'll go out a little bit through, I believe, the UK Pavilion, and you'll run back and around basically where the Skyliner construction is, so we may get a cool look at that at least. And then you'll come out and go in through the back entrance of Epcot again, and you'll finish your way all the way around World Showcase, and you'll go back out the front, and then you'll be done. Again, this course kind of stinks. A lot of the 10K courses I think are better. The ones that start and finish at Epcot, you get a lot more park time, and you at least also get to go and run around the boardwalk area, which is nice. The Star Wars 10K, you typically start at Magic and you run all the way to Hollywood, and then you run through Hollywood and then go and run through Epcot and finish, so you get 2 parks. So a little bummed about this course. I definitely think they could have done better. You are basically just running down World Drive for most of it. After you go through all of that, you'll be done and you'll have finished the 10K. The 10Ks are fun. They're not nearly the challenge that the halves are. And when you're making that long trip down World Drive, there will be at least different character stops and different forms of entertainment along the way. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to be, since this was a different course from when I ran it, and B, I haven't run the Wine and Dine race since 2016, so 2 years ago now. You'll be done. You'll hopefully have gotten your character pictures, or at least gotten to crawl through the finish line holding the 16-minute pace, and you'll go through at the end, you'll get your medal. If you're running the challenge, you don't have to do anything for the 10K. All you have to do is finish. That's all you gotta do. From there, you'll go and they'll shoot you through. They'll have a medical tent there. You can usually get some water, and they'll give you your little snack box if you've ever seen those. Usually it's got some little chips, something sweet in it, and a couple other little things. Overall, the 10Ks are fun races. I like to do them, and it's usually not a distance that really tires me out before running the half the day before. Now, we're going to talk about the big one, the half marathon, 13.1 miles, lots of blood, sweat, and magic. Hopefully you've got your training in and you're ready to hold that pace for 13 miles. Pretty similar to the 10K, starts at Magic, finishes at Epcot. Again, if you're driving, park at Epcot, they shuttle you to Magic. If you're staying on Disney property, just take the bus. Be ready to get on the buses at about 3:30 a.m. Yes, you should be there around that time, it's real. So get yourself up and ready. But you're going to get to Magic. Like I said before, usually about an hour before they open the corrals. I'm going to show you the bib again. If you're running the challenge, you have 2 corrals. You're going to be looking at the second one. So for 2016, I was in Corral D. That's where you're going to go. I do like the way they do the corrals at Magic. It's a little closer together, as opposed to when they start at Epcot, and if you're all the way in Corral A, like I am for the races now, you've got to hike usually like half a mile to get all the way up to your corral. So it is a little nicer at Magic. Usually you just walk down a row and it's, you know, A, B, C, D, so on and so forth. There are a lot more runners for the half, and therefore a lot more corrals as well, so just keep that in mind. And that shouldn't discourage you as well if your 10K corral is a lot lower than your half corral. There's just a lot less people at the 10K. A couple things you should already know and have ready before this race. First off, you should be hydrated. If you're running the challenge or any of the other races, you should be hydrating all weekend. Make sure you're getting lots of water. These races can be prone to dehydration pretty easily because you're not just running these races. A lot of you are also on vacation, going into the parks and whatnot. So it's really important to hydrate. There is no reason to not be able to finish because you didn't drink enough water. As well, make sure you're getting enough sleep. You have to be up early, so you should not stay at Magic Kingdom till 11 a.m. or 11 p.m. and then go ahead and try to get up at 2:30 to try to make that 3:30 bus. Typically, my morning routine for the races consists of obviously getting up, usually somewhere around 2:30, 3 o'clock. I get up, usually I put music on. I'll make some sort of hype playlist with whatever you choose, Disney music or whatnot. Usually I get the coffee going right away, and while that's going, I usually grab a bottle of water and I drink a bottle of water before I do anything else. Your usual stuff, running clothes, make sure you've got your energy, anything else you may need. Now let's talk about the course. So the race starts and you're basically running out the exit of the Magic Kingdom, and you run, you zigzag a little bit, and you end up basically turning around over by the gas station, if you know where that is, and running back towards like the Grand Floridian. So it's a little bit of a zigzag. It's really just kind of a big U-turn that you make. But this is actually pretty cool because usually they have fireworks going off for each corral that starts, and you get to start and you can see them, but then when you make that U-turn, you're basically running back towards the corrals and you get to see the fireworks again, which is pretty cool, and you can see the rest of the corrals starting behind you. But from there you go on to basically a back service road, cast members only, and you run back that road for a couple miles. It's kind of nice, it's wooded on both sides. For Star Wars, there's usually all kinds of cool scenery and stuff back there, but I'm not sure what they're going to do for Wine and Dine. This is the same course as the Star Wars Dark Side half, exact same layout, but I do like this course a lot. It's not a whole lot of highway time, and it's a lot of fun. You get to see 3 different parks: Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and Epcot. So that's pretty awesome. But anyways, so you go and you're running through this back road. If you've ever ran this course or you've ran the marathon, you know this as the road where the sewage plant is on, which is right behind Animal Kingdom. But you run back this road for about 2 miles, maybe a little more, and you round and you go in the back side of Animal Kingdom, and then you run through Animal Kingdom, which is a little bit disorienting. The first time I ran it, I didn't realize it, but when I ran Star Wars this last time, they really have you zigzagging all over the place now because they want you to go and get to run through Pandora and all of that. But it wasn't like a very straight path. It was a lot of back and forth, and it was actually disorienting. And at one point I actually didn't realize where I was until all of a sudden I was passing through into Dino Land. So after you zigzag your way through Animal Kingdom, you are already almost 6 miles in. You will pass the 5-mile mark as you're going out the back exit of Animal Kingdom, and the 6th mile is right through the parking lot, which you'll cut straight through. And then you're running down Osceola Parkway for a while, and you merge onto World Drive, and then you again, after about another mile, merge onto the Epcot Resort Road. I forget the name of the road, but basically that takes you to the backside of Hollywood Studios. Right after mile 8, there is the food and water stop. The food is the jelly beans, as we've talked about. They're just energy sport beans by Jelly Belly. They're okay. Usually I find during the longer races I need something a little more substantial, but they are nice to open the pack up and chew on them here or there. They're easy to eat because they're so small and they're nice and sweet. Once you get over to Hollywood, you go in a cast member entrance and you go up basically to the back of the Fantasia stage, and you'll get to see the Fantasia area. It's pretty cool. There usually is people back there for Star Wars. They have the 501st cosplayers. Not sure what they'll have for Wine and Dine again. But it's pretty cool, and you'll run down the entrance to Fantasia, past Tower, and you'll run up Hollywood Boulevard and then down the main entrance. From there though, the path does get a little tight. You go from Hollywood to Epcot, and you take the walking path between Hollywood and the Boardwalk Resort. If you're in an area with a lot of people, it's going to get very cramped. Try your best to use good race etiquette. Raise your hand before you're going to walk and move off to one of the sides. But after you get through that, you hang a right and you run through the Boardwalk Resort area and down into Epcot. And at this point, you are basically done. Right after you get into World Showcase, you hit mile 12. You have 1 mile to go. It's an awesome mile. It's basically all around World Showcase. You go in that back entrance. You'll pass all the different countries except for the UK and Canada, which are in the opposite direction. But you go through there, and then you go right out the front of Epcot, past Spaceship Earth. You hang a quick right to go out basically a service entrance, and you're at the finish line. And at that point, you've done it. You just did 13.1 miles. And just like the 10K and the 5K, once you cross the finish line, you'll go through. They have medical staff and a whole medical tent right there, and a little self-service area as well. You can get bags of ice, whatever you need. And then they kind of funnel you a good little distance out. They have Gatorade and water and stuff along this path. And then you go ahead and get your medals, and if you're doing the challenge, there'll be basically a separate challenge tent that you'll have seen already at the 10K and been like, oh, do I need to go through that, even though no one was there to man that tent. But now you'll go through it. There'll be volunteers there with computers, and you'll walk up and they'll look up your bib number and your picture and they'll say, yep, that's you, congratulations, and you'll go through, and then you'll also get your challenge medal. Just like the other races, you'll get your snack box as well, your more water if you need it, your banana, and then they have pictures, and then they also have a variety of different characters usually at the end. At the end of the 10K, when I did it 2 years ago, they had Remy and Emile that you could take pictures with, and at the half, I believe they had Lumiere and Cogsworth. But overall, it was a really fun race when I ran it, and I hope that you make it through and also have a great time. Another important thing to remember for the half is that we are actually going to have a time change that Sunday morning. So this actually works out really well for the half marathon because you're going to be gaining an hour of sleep. Hydration options on the course, you should try to take advantage of it even if you don't use all of them. Some of them are good. They do offer Gatorade and water at all of the stands. There's 9 of them in total, so it's like every mile and a quarter, give or take. They're kind of spread out depending on where you are. Like there's none in the parks except for one right before you get into Epcot. So you definitely should prepare for that. Consider that you may have 1.5 miles to 2 miles in the parks before you get to your next stop when considering whether or not to take water at the stop you're at. In general, more hydration is probably better than less hydration. If you start the race later in the day and the sun's already coming up and it's going to start to get hotter, then you are going to need to intake more water. These stops are very long, so don't feel like you have to go and get that first table. All of the volunteers there will have cups out for you to grab. Don't worry about grabbing from the first table. There's plenty of options. Usually there's a Gatorade or Powerade option first for 40, 50 feet with tons of people handing it out. And then after that there's water options. There's usually also people with some sort of bag or refilling option to fill your bottles if you need that as well. If you are already congested with a lot of people, this area can get a little bit chaotic. Just try to, be as good as you can and work with everyone else and stay hydrated. Afterwards, they do have a long line of trash cans. Try your best to get your trash into a trash can, or at least as close as you can. You definitely don't want to leave it on the race course. Bottles and stuff could be a hazard for other people. So, if pacing's something that you're worried about, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about how that works. Basically, you may have heard of what people call the balloon ladies. These are essentially volunteers who start the race last, and they have big balloons attached to them, and they keep the 16 minute per mile pace for the race. If you fall behind them and you hit a sweep zone, you are going to be told, we're sorry, thank you for participating, but you have to now get on the bus and you can no longer participate. Things to consider with this: 1, they start in the very last corral. So if you were a couple corrals up, you have all of that time that it takes all the other corrals to start before that 16 per minute pace starts. Now you should still do your best to hold that pace, especially if you're trying to get pictures with characters and it's busy. It's definitely very easy to try to stop at all the stops, and then all of a sudden the balloon ladies are right on your tail. As I kind of mentioned, it's not an instant sweep. Basically, they have different check marks all throughout the race, and if you're behind them at whatever those points are, that's when they sweep you. Typically, after you get out of Hollywood Studios, that is the last checkpoint. So once you get onto the path leading to Epcot, the very narrow path, then you're safe. You can usually take almost as much time as you need to finish that last 2 miles. Another thing I'd like to mention is make sure to thank the volunteers. Now, you don't have to be a person who yells "thank you volunteers" at every single water stop and every time you see a volunteer, but do remember while you're running these races that these people holding the waters, picking up your trash, were all up earlier than you were. They were all at their stations earlier than you were, and they are not being paid to be there. They volunteered because they wanted to be a part of it. As part of your package for participating in the half marathon or the challenge, you are basically invited to the Wine and Dine after party, which takes place at Epcot after the park closes. So the party itself takes place from 10 p.m. to 1 p.m. at Epcot. You can get in through either of the gates there, and they will have busing and whatnot available for you. However, you actually get early access, and you can enter the park at 8 o'clock. Now, if you're a pass holder or you have tickets to be in the parks that day, then you can go in, and when it's basically time for the party to start, you'll have your party ticket and you'll just go, and they'll have points in there to get your party band. But otherwise, you can show up at 8 and you can go and you can get to watch Illuminations and then watch everyone leave as you get to stay. You should have gotten your ticket in the mail. Basically, it's just a regular Walt Disney World ticket, and then on the back it says Wine and Dine Post-Race Party with the date on it. If you didn't receive this, when you go to the expo, go to their guest services for the race and explain that to them, and you shouldn't have a problem getting your ticket. This happened to me when I ran it in 2016. You can get it at 8, you can watch Illuminations. It's awesome, and then from 10 to 1, usually they have a couple rides open. I believe Soarin' and Test Track were both open, along with a couple other rides. And then they also keep all of the food and wine stands open, so you can go and taste your way around the world all night long. Now, I would definitely recommend going back to your room and getting a good nap in right after you ran 13 miles, because if you're going to run that race in the morning and then do the parks all day and try to do this party, I don't know how you do it, because I'm usually exhausted by like 2 o'clock if I don't take a nap. This party is a really good time, and it's a really awesome perk for running this race. None of the other Run Disney races offer this party, so this makes this one of the cooler events to participate in. Another great perk of the race is that you'll also get a $15 gift card. I'm not holding an actual gift card because this will be emailed to you. And one thing you can do with this virtual code, if you already have a Disney gift card, you can go to disneygiftcards.com, I believe it is, and you can put the code in, and you can basically transfer the balance onto a physical card if you would like. That about covers my what to expect video for the Run Disney Wine and Dine half marathon weekend for 2018. I'm really excited about the race, really optimistic about it. If you have any other questions that I did not answer, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I will go ahead and try to answer them, or if we have that many questions, I may just go ahead and make another video for you guys. But thanks so much for watching. Make sure to follow all of our different other links. We're going to be posting throughout the weekend, and I'm really excited and I hope you are. Best of luck!